Welcome to the Festival of Entrepreneurs, recorded live at the NEC in Birmingham. Over the next few minutes, you'll hear from some of the most incredible founders, investors, and business leaders who joined us this year.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to Birmingham's NEC at the Festival of Entrepreneurs 2025. Alex Chisnell and James Ashworth have done a fantastic job, worked really hard together, a collection of experts and panelists. So I hope you'll be going to a few speeches today. Well, this session's going to last about 35 minutes, and what I've known about sessions before, they go incredibly quick. So if you know any questions, or you do have any questions, don't be shy in coming forward when I offer it open to the panel, because before you know it, the time will be gone. I'll leave aside about 10 minutes for Q&A sessions. If for any reasons you still got any questions unanswered, I'm sure our panelists will be happy to answer them via LinkedIn or whichever social platform they prefer. Anyway, I'm Trevor Jenkins. I'm a podcaster, producer of the Not Just Crew podcast. I'm also going to be launching a podcast in the very near future called Be Bold, Not Told, and it is about the spirit of entrepreneurs, how you're willing to put your money and your head above the parapet. So when it launches, I'm hoping you will sign up. Anyway, today's talk, I say it's a talk, is embedding innovation in your business DNA. Now, what does that even mean to the layperson? I'm sure they wouldn't have too much of a general knowledge on that one. But it was Daryl Warden from Disney who made it a buzzword. I'm not sure if he actually created it, but he certainly started off. Anyway, I have a brilliant panel with me today who are going to help me decipher exactly what it means. If I can welcome to the stage Francesca Salussolia. She's going to kill me if I've got that wrong, because she's got a lovely Italian accent to go with it. She's the founder of Goal 17. So please come and join me on the stage. My next guest is John Auckland, CEO of Seafields Solutions, also the co-founder. Are you also an affiliate of Brunel University? Yeah, also an affiliate of Brunel University. If you'd like to come and join me, John, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Dirk Schaefer, SME Engagement Lead at the University of Warwick Science Park. And I believe you've got to stand at G12 over there when any of you guys fancy a look later. Please come and join me. And come and welcome to. Okay, look, they've all had wonderful careers. I'm dying to have a chat with them myself. Sometimes I do feel a bit out of depth in this subject. So look, just to go, DNA in business is just more than a trendy buzzword. From what I understand, it's a critical element for business survival. Just as human DNA confirms the characteristics of us, a company DNA refers to its core values, its mission, its purpose, and decision-making patterns. So in the meantime, I'm just going to give each of the panelists a quick 1 minute just to introduce themselves and tell us all about it. Francesca, I shall start with you, if I may.
Hi, yes. Hello, everyone. My name's Francesca. So I'm the founder of two organisations, Goal 17 and Wowment. One is a spin-out of the other. So Goal 17, we develop volunteer mentoring programmes, typically for young people that are going through some form of disadvantage, so care leavers or children in care. And we fulfil contracts for the Mayor of London, Department of Education, and most of the local authorities across the UK, as well as lots of big corporate businesses that we help them meet their CSR and ESG targets. And then on the spin out of that, we've now developed some patent pending technology, which we're very excited about, which is having a little bit of a disruptive, it seems to be quite disruptive. We've won an Innovate UK grant from it and their Inclusive Innovation Award. And what that technology does, very simply, is it connects people on WhatsApp without exchanging their contact details. So in our line of work, it's really powerful because we can get a volunteer mentor with a young person, and then it integrates all sorts of exciting AI that does things such as translation, or it does things like safeguarding and constant monitoring, whilst respecting the privacy of those conversations. So that's me.
John.
Hi, yeah, John Auckland. It's very loud. So my background is in crowdfunding. So I started a crowdfunding agency. Did my first crowdfunding campaign in 2012, which was the biggest sports crowdfunding campaign for Brabham Motorsport, if any of you remember that campaign. And that gave me the bug for crowdfunding. So I set up an agency called Tribe First, which was the world's most successful crowdfunding marketing agency. So I've personally been involved in over 120 crowdfunding campaigns. I started running accelerator programs, which I mainly did with the likes of Virgin Startup, Grant Thornton, Crowdcube, and Cedars. And then I started running a program with the Branson family called Collective Impact, which is more of an impact-led fundraising readiness accelerator program. And it was actually during that program that I kind of realized how few entrepreneurs were working on the big systems change problems that we need to solve, things like climate change and plastic pollution and so on. And so I decided I wanted to become a founder myself. And so I set up a company called Seafields, which is a hyperscale seaweed farming business that's going to grow a type of floating seaweed called sargassum, which we can grow on half of the planet's surface and can single-handedly reverse climate change. It's quite an amazing seaweed. So we're now working in the Caribbean, where it is a problematic seaweed, in remediating it and turning it into valuable products like bioplastics and biofuels. And eventually, we'll go to the open ocean and hopefully make a dent in our carbon budget.
Okay, young Dirk.
Hi, my name is Dirk. I refer to myself as the Swiss Army knife of the University of Warwick Science Park. I run the startup incubator Ignite at the Science Park, as well as our business lounges that we have in different locations, and run our Ignite alumni network, which brings founders together to exchange knowledge and bring innovation forward. I'm also a business growth advisor on a government-funded business support program, and run the technical marketing agency TechMark of the Science Park, which are market development projects for companies looking to enter markets with their products. And we also have a business angel network, a very active business angel network in the Science Park called Minerva. And so as part of my role, I work with lots of companies. I've probably worked with about 1,500 companies over 25 years' time. So there isn't a lot that I haven't seen yet.
Well, so you can see we've got quite a panel here. So there will be a time for some questions and answers afterwards. So let's get down to the subject at hand. So what does embedding DNA into your business actually mean? Well, apart from the items that I've already mentioned, it's got to be ingrained into every part of the business. Now, it's not just a poster written on words, with brand values. It's got to be deeply involved in the company from the top down. So, Francesca, I'm going to start with you. You've got a more of a human element onto this without it sounding too non-human, if that makes sense. It does sound scary. So, away, I'd like to hear.
Yeah, so I think, when we talk about innovation DNA, I think it was interesting actually what you said when you started there, Trevor, about DNA being the culture and so on. So I think for us, in terms of how we've embedded this innovation DNA, is very much around the culture that we have. And when I say that, sometimes that culture is just with me, because if many of you are starting businesses, a lot of the time you don't have a team at the beginning, so the culture is actually just you. And it was only later, as my businesses grew, that I started to get people that once I'd done that well myself, I could bring it into others. But that culture for us is very much about listening and responding to what happens. So in our case, we listened to the challenges that we had as a team. The challenge in our business was around safeguarding. And so rather than just ignoring it, we went, well, let's face that head on. And then we tried all sorts of different things in terms of how to solve that issue, but continually listened to what our users and clients told us. And actually, sometimes it's quite hard to hear. Quite frequently, we were told that it wasn't good enough. So in our case, we were developing a platform and app to try and connect people safely. And we were putting people on this platform and app, and then they just stopped using it. And they would go onto WhatsApp, and we're just getting really frustrated, going, we've told you can't do this. And they kept doing it, but we listened to them and went, okay, hold on, maybe we should go onto WhatsApp as well. So it's that really listening to what people are telling you, and then rather than trying to change people, actually change what you're doing to meet people where they're at. And I think that's become a huge part of our DNA of an organisation. Don't try and change people, try and change where you're at and meet them where they are. so that you can support them. But obviously that's also involved bringing in all sorts of AI. I often, and I know Trevor wanted me to mention this, I think when we talk about technology and AI, we often think about how can we use that technology to be better, to be quicker, to cut people out, to save money, those kind of things. In our case, we're actually using technology to create more human connection, to help us identify and spot where we can do more human interaction rather than less human interaction. So I think that's a really important part that I know, Trevor, you wanted us to mention today. So I think that whole thinking about innovation, thinking about DNA, for us, it's listening to people, listening what your customers are telling you, even if they're telling you sometimes you're being a bit crap, because sometimes they do tell you that. In the nicest possible way, they tell you things aren't quite right. And that's the best feedback you can get.
Thank you very much for that, Francesca. The human element is important, especially as you mentioned, although we do have this subject, it's not necessarily always big businesses. Sometimes it can be very small, literally a one-person operation. Now, I know there's some massive companies around here today, but believe me, some of the companies I've run have had no more than 4, possibly 5 people in. So the goals are the same, which is why I'm going to bring in James now on the certain principle you wanted to talk about.
John.
I'm so sorry. Do you know, I have done this to this young man about 4 times today. I was speaking to somebody called James earlier, and you're never going to present for me again, I can tell.
No, it's fine. You can call me whatever you want. My real name's not even John Auckland, it's actually John Wedge. But that's another story for another time. Anyway, without being too negative, because I don't like kind of talking on the negatives, but it's always kind of good to talk from a position of what can happen. And, everyone knows the famous story of Blockbuster, right? Didn't embed innovation in their DNA, died, loved film, and ultimately Netflix now leads the market significantly. Interestingly, Love Film, as they were back in the day, tried to pitch Blockbuster, and their venture capital arm said, give us some money, and they were laughed out of the room. So, and that's because they didn't have innovation embedded in their DNA. And there's lots of examples of companies like this. And I think the problem is if you don't do it from a very, very early stage, it's the easiest time to ever do it is now. The easiest time to do it is when you have one person in your organization, because then it's you. You embed it into your culture, it becomes part of your DNA, and then it will never leave. And that's why you see a lot of these kind of tech companies have succeeded and become such massive companies, is because they started from a position of innovation and they embedded it in their DNA. They understood that when you do start getting too big, you need to start thinking about innovation differently. They create a Skunkworks. The Skunkworks is like a startup hub within their massive, massive organization. It's not weighed down by all the big sort of corporate games that you have to play. And so it doesn't matter what size you are, you need to think about what innovation means for you and how you can best implement it. So my previous company, Tribe First, was a crowdfunding marketing agency. And we would have every month, we would have an innovation session, just an ideation session. We'd just sit down, no agenda, and we'd just come up with ideas. And those ideas would kind of take 2 forms. They'd either be campaign ideas for how to run a campaign for our clients, so it's kind of passing that innovation on as a service to our clients, or it would be how can we evolve as a business? What else can we do differently? This was about the time where ICOs were becoming a thing, right? Blockchain was kind of massive in taking off, and there were a few sort of failed ICOs, and so we said, well, do we want to get into this space? So we'd sort of run some innovation sessions around this. And ultimately, it kept us alive. And actually, when I left Tribe First, and it was taken over by someone else, they stopped doing that. They stopped innovating. The funding landscape changed, and the business died. And it's really sad, actually, that a business that I exited died not long after I left it. And I truly believe it's just because the new owner didn't have this sort of innovation embedded into his thinking and his DNA. So Seafields, coming back to your point, Trevor, about pivots. And I think at this stage, we're in the scale-up stage, right? So I'm assuming most people here, right? Put your show of hands. Who here is a startup? Out-and-out startup? Okay. Most of the room. Who here would call themselves a scale-up? Okay, so probably about 60-40%. So it doesn't matter at which stage you're at. I think it's really, really important that you still kind of have that innovation thinking. And the reason that I say that, if you're a startup, you're probably still trying to find your product market fit. It's probably unlikely that you've really truly found that yet. You might have found some customers, but are they just early adopters, or is that just your market? You don't really know that yet, right? And so, and then if you're a scale up, you probably have found your product market fit, but landscape can change, as we found at Tribe First. So as Seafields, we became quite a big organization quite quickly. We raised a lot. I mean, this idea was massive, right? And we found a lot of investment. We raised $2.9 million in our first, pounds in our first 18 months. It was a wild, wild ride. And everyone fell in love with this idea that the seaweed could save the planet. But we hadn't really worked out who our customers were. We thought our customers were carbon credit buyers. We thought they were big corporates that wanted to offset their carbon emissions. And then all of a sudden, the carbon credit market collapsed. It went from being a $3 billion market to an $800 million market almost overnight, all led by a couple of carbon credit buyers. Guardian exposés and a couple of carbon credit buyers were being sued for buying bad credits. So no one wanted to buy credits anymore. So it's like, well, how do we fund this business? So we needed to completely rethink who we were. And so we pivoted into being a biomass feedstock supplier. So we just moved entirely away from carbon credits and said, well, how can we monetize the seaweed in a different way? We now sell the seaweed to bioplastics companies and biochemicals companies. And if we weren't, because we had so much money and we'd promised our investors that this is what type of company we were, if we hadn't had that innovation embedded and we hadn't communicated with our customers on a regular basis about our innovation process and why we were thinking along these ways, and then all of a sudden we pivoted to being a feedstock supplier, we could have lost our investors. And in our current round, our most recent fundraising round, almost every single one of our investors invested into the new company, which is a very different company from what they invested in 2.5 years ago. And I think that's a part of kind of embedding innovation in your DNA, is being transparent and communicating what you're doing within the realms of what you want to, with your investors, your stakeholders, your customers, and getting their feedback and their reaction from that as well.
In fact, all I'm pretty much going to do is just hand the mic over to you. And what we're going to sort of discuss now is the power of mentoring. I'm not sure if any of the startups ever looked at it or just even used the internet, YouTube, perhaps, as mentoring. So I'm going to hand you over to Dirk now.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So as I said earlier, we run a number of business support programs, from a startup incubator to a business support program that's for startups and scale-ups. We also have a business angel network called Minerva and a technical marketing agency. And it's very apparent the 500 companies that we work with over a year, they all come to us because they have a lack in skills and knowledge. Now, there are a number of different ways of how companies can get skills or knowledge into their business. On the one hand side, find a co-founder, especially startups. The startups we see, they don't tend to have the right skill or knowledge to bring their ideas or innovation forward. So right at the beginning, you are pretty disadvantaged and have a skills gap. So that's obviously one of the big points that we're trying to address. But there are different other ways how you can get skills into your business. So it's you can work with an advisor that has a certain knowledge, or they have a certain network that they can introduce you to. So don't forget the power of the network. There are other ways how you can bring skills into your business. Apart from a co-founder, you could find a person that has a certain skill that you need in your business and engage them as an advisor to your board. It's a relatively cheap way to get a certain skill into your business, or as well get a non-executive director into your business that brings a certain access to market, certain contacts into your business, or a certain skill. So every business is looking for this elusive CTO. And it's not very easy to find that person. Then other ways to get skills into the business is probably get a student in on a student project, to run a project for you, to help you develop your business model, and see how you can get into the market in good order and quickly and so on. So And yeah, then the most expensive way to get a skill into your business is to recruit somebody. For a startup, it's not necessarily an option, so you need to go and look at the other options that you've got. What we see quite a lot is that companies approach us and they face an obstacle and they didn't even know they had this problem. So it's the unknown unknowns. Have you heard of those? Yes, so I see some nodding. It's really important to engage with somebody external to highlight those potential obstacles to you, because it can be very dangerous if you fall over that hurdle. It can be very expensive and can stop your business on its tracks.
Well, thank you very much. So, just out of, you did show of hands, how many have actually started up a business literally within, say, the last 6 months? Anyone? So there's a fair few of you. Okay, so even although a lot of this could sound quite academic, have any of you seen the program Jimmy's Farm? No, I'll tell you, if you want have any of you guys seen Jimmy's Farm? It's a program made by Channel 4. It's somebody who wanted to specialise in pig farming near Ipswich. And as John mentioned earlier, he did a complete pivot. He still does it, but if you go down to this farm in Ipswich, there are now very well looked after, by the way, I have to add this, polar bears, brown bears, penguins, and it all started from a small farm, but it's what it's also done to the local economy down there. It's really, really boosted it, and he started with approximately £13,000, and I'm guessing, when I was there a couple of months ago, his turnover is equal over 50 million now. Now, what kept that up for him was one word, and that was tenacity. It's the power of keeping going, and as the guy said, it's a real discipline to embed this or innovate DNA into your business model. I'm aware we're going to be short for time because I do want to hand over the guys for some questions. So I've made some notes there as to what it means, whether you're literally turning over £10,000 in your first year, sometimes even less, to £50,000. So the first thing we're looking at is your mindset. So everybody from the leadership to the frontline staff feels responsible for finding new and better ways of doing things. Now, that could be you literally talking to yourself, say how you can improve. The second is the culture within your environment, whether it's an office in your back bedroom or a big, huge place. It's the culture. The organisation rewards curiosity and risk-taking. So if you want to, as John said, if you want to go on a pivot and you think it's going to work, do reward yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. It is about experimentation as well. And also the structure you have in place. That could be anything from buying a new £100,000 tooling machine just to a new printer, if it's going to really sharpen your image. So yeah, structure, process, tools, resources are designed to support rapid experimentation and idea sharing. And use your family as well. If you are brand new to business, make sure your family are on board. Make them your best ally rather than your worst enemy, because there will be times when it will be quite tense. And the main thing, of course, is why you're in business. It's customer focused. Now, it doesn't matter who that customer is. You can even be your own customer. Use innovation, starts with understandings and involving customers' needs. Just make sure all customer needs are met. Now, so I'm going to leave. That's pretty much. I'm going to leave 10 minutes for questions. Has anyone got any questions at all for the panel? There's no silly question to say. It doesn't matter if you're running a big organisation or literally in your first few £100s. What I'll do, I'll bring the mic over.
Yes, it's to all three of you really. So when you bring a new starter into the company, how do you get them to buy into the culture that you're trying to create?
So I think it's a great question. So did everyone hear that? How do you get a new starter to buy into your culture? I think it's lots of little things. So we have quite a structured induction program for all new starters in our company. So some of it is spending a bit of time with me. I still find that really important. But as the team grows, there's less and less time with me. But I still like to at least spend some time with new team members. Also, they get we do a buddy system, so they have somebody with them. But if you ask my team what embeds our culture the most, probably the honest answer is the team WhatsApp group. Because that is where the relationships and we're a fully remote team, so we have no office. So the team WhatsApp group and the team gatherings every quarter is really where that culture embeds itself. So lots of the little chats, the sharing the dogs. I think I know my team's dogs better than I know them, to be fair. I know all of their eating routines. I know when one of them's got an upset tummy or, all of that kind of stuff. But it's that building those relationships and being visible about the little cultural things. So again, especially if any of you are working remotely, we're really super visible about any kind of positive and also constructive feedback collectively as a group. We talk really openly about stuff like that and just all the different touch points. As the team has grown now, we've also got a team in the Philippines. So as some of you may well know, we've had earthquakes in the Philippines in the last few weeks. And it's things like that when the culture really comes out, because the rest of the team were like, right, let's send packages out to Annie. What do you need? What would you need if you were in an earthquake? And, all of that kind of stuff that helps build that. When it then comes to that innovation, because you've got that lovely open culture, what happens is you can challenge each other, because really I think with innovation, it's about not accepting the status quo and being able to openly challenge. So for us, it's building that foundation that we all kind of feel really close and as a close-knit group, that somebody can say, hey, look, you've been whinging about that for ages. Why don't we sit down and work something out on it? Or, you just kind of brush that off. Let's go deep on that and find a solution.
Yeah, can I add something to that? Is that right? So I'm going to roll it back a little bit and kind of go before the recruitment process and say, make sure that you recruit around your mission statement. And what I mean by that is, if you don't know what your mission statement is, you need to do that first, right? But if that's very, very clear, if you recruit around that idea, because it's a weird thing, a lot of people try and recruit around values, and you end up maybe just getting a bit of a kind of, everyone's so value aligned, but they're very samey, and so there's no friction and there's no kind of, and actually, but if you recruit around the mission statement, then everyone is pulling in the same direction. They want that same mission to happen, and they could see it differently, and that's a good thing. And they may see the journey there to be slightly differently, and that's also a good thing, because that's where you don't get stuck in the mud. But for Seafields, it's our North Star has always been this concept of large-scale carbon removal, and we're not going the same way that we thought we'd go, because we're going via small farms in the Caribbean, not big open ocean farms. But everyone is really happy about that, because they know that where we want to get to is this large-scale carbon removal. And so our churn rate is really, really low. No one has left the company because of that mission, right? And you can do that kind of before. I don't know, ours is a really sort of extreme example, but every business can do that. Every business has a mission, can have a mission if you don't have one, and you should get one.
Can I just add one more thing to that quickly? Sorry, Dirk.
Of course you can.
We talked a minute ago about I thought it was really interesting when John talked about changing, pivoting, and doing something different and pulling his investors along. And we've also done that. But it's that vision and that going, this is where we're going, that it doesn't then really matter what happens. And I think it's really important with that team culture, because especially when you're small, somebody joins our company with one role and 3 months later we've completely changed their role because actually the company's moved and churned. And so you need people, just like John says, going for that, this is what we're going for. And then they don't really care what they're doing. They just want to get their hands dirty and do it.
So for me, there's a big difference between a leadership team and a management team. A leadership team leads by example and embeds a certain culture in a business. A management team throws KPIs at you, and so people go there at 9 and leave at 5 and do their job and then leave. So it's about developing your leadership team, and if you don't know how that works, talk to your peers and see how they're doing it. And that's a very big point in there.
Excellent. Thank you for your question. Any other questions? So we're running to the last 5 minutes. Just to say your name and say hello to the panel.
Hi. Innovation can cause a lot of flux in your organisation because there's a lot of changes happening. How do you kind of balance that with actually just getting some stuff done at the same time? How do you balance those two things?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm not going to come back to if you have the right team with the right culture, because when you go through that period of change, everyone is working twice as hard, and you don't know whether what you're going to be working on is going to be successful. It's the scariest time of a startup or scale-up. And if you have recruited the wrong people that aren't on that journey with you, that's when I've seen most businesses fail at that point. Yeah, they run out of money because they don't change fast enough, right? So that's kind of the crux of, and it's really, really hard. You're pulling all-nighters, and there's no other way around it. So I'd like to say that it's all rosy and it's easy. It's just not. Pivoting is the hardest thing a business will ever do. But the ones that successfully pivot have had that culture embedded from day one. I can't really say much more than that, I think.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is that, again, back to something that John said before, is having different people in the team. So I think most of us that are entrepreneurs are generally those innovators, and we have all these crazy ideas. And my number two, my programs director, is process and organisation. And I often say to her, will you just tell me to shut up if I go off on one? And she'll pull me back and go, right, that's great, but the contract says this, and this is what we've got to deliver, or whatever it might be. And that really goes back to what John said, is you don't want everybody that's exactly the same. You need to recruit people that are different. And when I brought her in, I specifically needed somebody that would bring that structure, which actually gives me the freedom to go off and be more creative and be more innovative, because I know that there's somebody holding the ropes on the ship and making sure we don't sail too far off into the distance, but without stifling it. And that then goes back to the previous question around culture, because we can have a really frank conversation and I can say to her, you're really annoying me now. And she can say the same to me, so that we know that we can be honest and open and make sure that we're doing what's best for the business and the organisation, not just kind of going off on our own one. So yeah, recruiting those people with different skills really, really helps in that process.
Okay, Dirk, anything to add?
I'll have a go as well. Coming back to the leadership team, it's about being agile and rewarding innovative thinking in your business, have initiatives, monthly competitions or whatever that encourage your staff to innovate and to work towards a common goal. So that for me is really important. But so that's usually for larger businesses.
Excellent. I reckon we've got time for one more quick question, if everyone wants to give it.
Can I just follow up on the point you made about pivoting and about bringing people along and how that role changes? We have a very open culture where I try to encourage everybody to bring ideas to the table, but there's certain points where you're kind of, I'm getting nothing. What do you do about that? Is that a person that you kind of might have to remove from the system because they might be a negative drain on the culture? Or do you seek external skill kind of training? Or, how do you, sometimes you just feel you're banging your head against a brick wall, if that makes sense, with certain individuals.
Yeah, I mean, all organisations have them. They have a role to play. If you have many of them, then you've got a problem. And if they outnumber the innovation people, the black hat wearer, as we call them, if you've got one of them in the organisation, that is their role. But name it. Say your role is to be more negative, to be the sort of devil's advocate, right? And give them that role. Don't expect innovation from them. That's all I'd recommend. We had that problem at Seafields. We had 3, and 2 of them were in leadership positions. And when they left, and there was one left, we had this amazing balance, and that's when we really started taking off.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think they're always going to be there, but they have value. So when you talk, the person comes straight into my head. I know who it is in our team. We call him our negative Nelly because he comes in and in fact I think he named himself that, to be fair. And he always asks the really difficult, annoying question, which often is actually sometimes the best question. It doesn't feel it in the moment. But the same thing, we've named it. We've said, I think he named himself, I'm your negative Nelly. He comes in. He always at the end of the meeting goes, sorry, but before we finish, and everyone, you can see everyone go, oh God, here we go. But then now everyone goes, okay, this is cool. This will help us grow. There is an element of coaching. I think it's very much with our culture. We kind of stand by everybody that comes into the team. So when there is that tension, we look at not just helping that person. In his particular case, we did quite a lot of coaching with him in terms of how to deliver that message. Because at the beginning, it was a bit blunt force trauma, and he just pissed everybody off, to be quite frank. But now he's better at positioning it, kind of going, oh, what you said was a really good idea, even though if I know he probably doesn't really mean it, just softening it a little bit. So a combination of coaching, but I do agree we've had a situation in the team where we had somebody came in and they were internally campaigning and pulling everybody else down, and that had to have a very frank conversation of what's up. And generally it was a personal issue with them, and we decided collectively it just wasn't the right place for them. And then we coached that person into finding their next career move and help them move on. So it became a really empowering experience, and it underpinned our culture as well. But I think it's having the right people and the right atmosphere is really important. It's always amazed me as my businesses have grown how much of my time that takes. And sometimes it's a little frustrating. I wish I could hand it off to other people. But fundamentally, when you hand it to others, the culture generally starts with you. And there's a bit that you can hand off, but actually I think it really has to come back down to you. So I just now sort of take a breath and go, okay, we've got to do some people issues today, but know that once you're through them, it's really worth it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you guys. So difficult people, they are part of every organization, and if you've got too many, then that's a problem. What I've seen worked in the past with some of the companies that we worked with is where companies did run design sprints, which involved difficult people. They suddenly felt empowered, and so were the main contributors in that design sprint. So again, it's sort of a reward to be involved in that and be involved in creating something very meaningful. And difficult people, they probably think they should be earning more, they should be having more responsibility, they don't like their boss, and that all goes away in a design sprint because everybody is equal. And so that's a nice technique you could apply in your business to overcome those problems. It doesn't always work, but I've seen it work.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. The next session is going to be starting in about 10 minutes, we've been told to clear. Firstly, thank you so much for coming along. It's so nice for the speakers to see people here. Good luck in your endeavours. Being an entrepreneur is actually a really, really nice word. So help each other out. Are you guys happy for them to contact you on LinkedIn or your social medias? Yeah. Okay, so it's great. And enjoy the rest of the day or the next 2 days if you're staying here. And my thanks to you guys here. Thank you very much, all.
Thanks for watching this special episode from the Festival of Entrepreneurs. Our mission is simple: to help founders and business owners grow faster, think bigger, and take action. And if you were part of the event, thank you for joining us and being part of the community. And if you missed it, don't worry. We'll be back with even more ideas, inspiration, and opportunities to help you take your business to the next level. You can find out more and register for future events at festivalofentrepreneurs.co.uk.